now that we've learnt that time use is a really good way to start thinking about data we need to address unpaid labor in the home, where we just look at how you're using your time, how much is it for paid labor, how much is it for unpaid labor, and then among unpaid labor, how much of it is spent on childcare, on household work, or how much of it is just spent on yourself, right? So just think about that. If I'm just looking at my time, there is the question of how much time do I spend for wage labor. But then there is also the question of how much time do I spend on the bus going to my job. Then what if we have children? How much time do I spend taking care of my kids? And it depends on their age, right? The kind of stuff I have to do when I'm breastfeeding an infant, which is very biological, is very different. Then what do I have to do if I've got a 12-year-old child who needs help with homework? A 7-year-old child who I'm reading to and helping them learn reading and math. A 14-year-old kid, I'm driving them to and from your Kumon math training. I'm driving them to and from their ballet practice, their soccer practice, their lessons on language, because you want your kid to learn multiple languages, whatever it is, right? So there is the direct primary work of caring for the children, and then there is this secondary or indirect work where you're driving them, you're scheduling them, they are making sure that they are going to their lessons and so on. So there's a lot that happens. Then there's just taking care of the house. Someone has to vacuum, someone has to cook dinner, someone has to do grocery shopping, someone has to pay attention. How much milk do I have in the fridge? Oh wait, out of my 2 kids, this one is allergic to peanuts, that one will not eat aubergine. We already had fish last week. I can't do fish again for 3 days because somebody prefers a diverse meal. So lots goes on. So the time use surveys are really useful if rough-grained. It's not necessarily going to drill down to the level of detail you want, but it is a good starting point to look at how people spend their time use. So your task is to get familiar with this data source. We're going to give you the link for that under Files. And then when you come to class, there are going to be patterns which we are going to ask you to identify in the first week of class, in the first half of class. Sorry, can you edit that? Patterns you can identify in the first half of class. So we now can use the ATUS, the American Time Use Survey, to get a better sense of the gender division of labor. How true is it that today men and women both share household work compared to in the past? Or does the data show differently? How true is it that in the US, our average gender division of labor is actually very progressive compared to other developed countries? Or if you look at our time use compared to other countries, also first world, is it the same or not? And if it's not, is it because women are working harder in the labor force? Or is it because men are doing more work at home? Because there are 2 elements to this, right? Women spending more time at work, men spending more time at home. When men don't work, what do? Do they spend more of it caring for children, taking care of the household, doing household labor, or do they spend it on leisure activities, hanging out with their buddies, going bowling, spending time at the local community center, all kinds of things. So this is a good way to get a sense of patterns. And when we come to class, I'm going to ask you to identify for me some of the major patterns you are seeing in the United States in terms of the American Time Use Survey for gender. In particular, I'd like you to look at the following: female, male differences, households with children. Who takes care of the kids? Both employed and then male versus female, unemployed or part-time. Which is that, let's not forget the stay-at-home dads. So take a look at the data. You got households with children. Either both parents are working full-time. Compare. What does the data show on how they are using their time if both are employed? And then if one of them is going to be stay-at-home, unemployed, part-time, whatever, what does the data show about what's happening when it's a stay-at-home dad who's unemployed or part-time versus a stay-at-home mom who's unemployed or part-time? So no prior judgments, just the data. Come to class, we'll discuss that. And then the second half of the class is going to transition us to explanations.